Paul George. The NBA suspended him 25 games for violating the league's anti-drug program.
You took some enhancement drugs to make you better on the court, but then you blame it on mental health.
Paul George just got hit with a massive 25-game suspension. And honestly, the timing of this whole thing is absolutely suspicious. 1 second, he's holding court with the press, discussing stress and anxiety medication, and the next second, the NBA brings the hammer down. But there is a detail everyone is missing. Rumor has it the league offered a quiet deal behind the scenes. They offered leniency in exchange for cooperation. That begs the question, who exactly are they trying to flip him on? We need to pump the brakes and analyze this. Because this isn't just a minor blip on the radar. This is the kind of chaos that derails an entire season. We are talking about a 9-time All-Star, a guy who is supposed to be the face of the franchise. The Sixers invested over $200 million in this guy to rescue their team. And just like that, he is out for 25 games, 0 pay, no heads up, no grace period, just gone. And let's be clear, this wasn't a warning shot. This counts as a first violation under the collective bargaining agreement's banned substance list, which proves the league is not messing around here. The news broke on January 31st, 2026, and the suspension started instantly, right before Philly was set to play the New Orleans Pelicans that evening. Picture this. You are suited up, game face on, ready for tip-off, and someone walks in and says, "Pack it up. You are out for 2.5 months." That creates a level of whiplash you can't just shake off. It destabilizes the locker room, the front office, and the playoff picture simultaneously. Philly didn't just lose a starter. They lost their closer, their safety valve, their main guy, and the NBA didn't show an ounce of mercy. Now, this is where it gets murky. The NBA famously never discloses the specific drug involved. They hide behind confidentiality clauses every single time. But if you look at the track record, a 25-game hit usually points to one thing: performance-enhancing drugs. We aren't talking about recreational use, accidental ingestion, or a mix-up. And let's nip this narrative in the bud. Right now, weed has been off the ban list since 2023. So don't even try to use that excuse.
So last Tuesday against the Bucks, PG had 35, 5 and 5, hit 9 threes.
Yeah, that got him tested.
And then ended up getting suspended a few days later on that Saturday.
Been injured for so long.
He has been hurt forever. Whatever showed up on that test was a big enough red flag for the league to act fast, keep a lid on it, and protect the brand. That is why the rumors about what he actually took aren't dying down. When the punishment is this swift and severe, there is usually a deeper story unfolding in the shadows. This goes beyond one guy making a bad choice. It comes down to power plays and public image, and right now, Paul George is the fall guy while the real story stays buried. But wait, because the plot thickens. Shortly after the news broke, Paul George put out a statement via Shams Charania at ESPN, and the language was extremely calculated. Paul claimed he has been vocal about his mental health struggles for years, and while getting treatment for a personal matter, he accidentally took a medication that wasn't allowed. He accepted the consequences, said the buck stops with him, and apologized to the Sixers, his family, and the fan base for letting everyone down. He vowed to keep working on his mental well-being and promised to come back a better player in person. It was polished, calm, and clearly written by a PR team, no finger-pointing, just damage control. At a glance, it looks like he is taking ownership. And to be fair, the backstory is there. Paul George has discussed his anxiety and depression openly, specifically referencing the bubble run in 2020. He has even talked about it on his own podcast. So, the mental health narrative isn't completely coming out of left field. That history gives his story a shred of believability. However, you can't ignore how convenient this all looks. The timing is just too perfect. 3 days before the January 28th suspension, Paul George played out of his mind against Milwaukee. He put up 32 points and hit 9 threes. 9. That is not a standard performance. That is a statement game. Keep in mind, this dude has been limping through the season. He only played 27 games and sat out 20 due to nagging injuries. Then, out of the blue, he looked spry, explosive, and sharp, like he turned the clock back half a decade. That kind of sudden improvement rings alarm bells at the league office. Even retired players are skeptical. Gilbert Arenas and his crew basically said on their show that a game like that is exactly what gets you randomly tested. When your body language says washed, but the game tape suddenly says prime, the league starts sniffing around. And once they start digging, they usually find something. That is where the dots start connecting. People think that vintage performance is what put a target on his back. I'm not saying it's a fact, but let's be real, that is usually how the script flips. You see a spike in production, the testing protocols kick in, and the results obviously didn't go Paul George's way. Now, let's follow the money, because this hurts. Paul George signed a 4-year, $212 million deal with Philly in 2024. His salary for this season is around $51.7 million. That is roughly $469,000 per game. Multiply that by 25 games, and he is flushing about $11.7 million down the toilet. Gone. No appeal, no do-over. Paul George turned 35 in May 2025, and his body has taken a beating over the years. Father Time is undefeated. Now he has to sit on the couch while his squad scraps for playoff seeding. He is out of commission until March 25th, 2026. That is basically the end of the regular season. This isn't a hiccup. It's a disaster. It is a financial nightmare, a career stain, and a mental burden. And while he is preaching accountability, the convenient timing and that sudden burst of athleticism have everyone side-eyeing the official story.
Just a minute. You're getting older here. You're feeling the weight of that contract. You want to make sure that you're a good player on the Philadelphia 76ers. You took some enhancement drugs to make you better on the court, but then you blame it on mental health.
I mean, it's not
Mental health.
rocket science here. I mean, the fact that he deflected it and made it about mental health was just crazy. Just own it and move on, because, Donnie, nobody will care in another week. And that'll be the end of it.
Paul George is eligible to return when Philadelphia hosts the Chicago Bulls. And here's the kicker. That leaves him exactly 10 games to get in game shape before the playoffs start. 10 games. That is nothing. No ramp-up time. No margin for error. Just straight into the fire. When the news dropped, the Sixers were 26-21, sitting 6th in the East and riding a 4-game heater. They finally had momentum. With Embiid, Maxey, and George on the floor, they actually looked scary, not just on paper, but for real. And then snap 1/3 of their big three vanishes for 3 months. It wasn't a gradual decline. It was a cliff. You literally cannot write a script this crazy. Now, here is a nuance most casual fans don't know about. The NBA's drug policy has a loophole called a therapeutic use exemption. If you actually need a banned substance for a medical condition, you apply for it, get approved, and you are good to go. Players use it all the time for things like ADHD meds. But from what we are hearing, Paul George never secured that paperwork. He popped the pills without getting the green light from the front office first. That single administrative slip-up is exactly what sidelined him. No paper trail, no insurance, no safety net. And this is where the skepticism really kicks into high gear. Paul keeps spinning this as a mental health matter, but he's keeping his cards close to the vest, never naming the drug or explaining how it actually broke the rules. He basically slapped a bad medication label on it and walked away. That ambiguity is a nightmare for his PR, because when you leave a void like that, the public is more than happy to invent the rest of the story, and that is precisely how it played out. The backlash across the association was deafening. You had talking heads, retired vets, and the Twitter mob all piling on. And frankly, a lot of them aren't buying what he's selling. Over on SportsGrid, Donnie and Joe just didn't pull any punches, asking how a guy with George's bank account manages to skip the basic step of clearing a prescription. Then you had the Inside the NBA crew. Shaq and Chuck were visibly blindsided. And per usual, Sir Charles kept it 100% real. He noted that even though the association has chilled out on stuff like weed recently, they don't play around with other compounds. He didn't mince words. He called the whole thing suspect. When Barkley talks, people tune in. The man has seen too much to ignore the signs. Then Stephen A. Smith jumped on First Take to declare Philly's title run effectively dead in the water, and he's not wrong. You can't subtract a max contract superstar for 25 matchups and act like it's business as usual. Jeff Teague threw his 2 cents in, wondering if PG's sudden scoring tear is what put a target on his back. He raised a solid point too. If these psych meds don't actually boost athletic performance, does the punishment really fit the crime? We'll be arguing about that for a while. But over on the Speakeasy pod, the vibe was way less forgiving. They accused George of weaponizing the mental health card to deflect criticism. That's a heavy accusation, but it mirrors the quiet conversations happening everywhere when a story has this many holes in it. Shannon Sharp and Ocho Cinco hashed it out on Nightcap. Unc felt bad for the guy but kept hammering home the need for ownership. You can have empathy while still demanding a grown man handle his business. Those two concepts aren't mutually exclusive. But Twitter? That was a war zone. The timeline was drowning in memes clowning PG for his up-and-down play. One viral post asked how he could pop dirty and still play like trash. Another clip showed him bricking a shot with a caption, roasting his enhancements. The internet takes no prisoners, and once they smell blood, it's over. The mob even started demanding drug tests for other legends like LeBron James. Completely baseless, of course. But since when does that stop anyone? That's the ripple effect of a scandal like this. Everyone's playing armchair chemist now, theorizing it might be an ADHD stimulant taken without a therapeutic use exemption. Others are convinced it's something heavier, pointing to his age and those erratic stats. Social media is already branding him with nicknames that are definitely going to sting.
Mental health. It's mental health. Listen, I can tell you too. Nigga 41 out there doing some other shit. Why we ain't testing him? They do.
$50 million on his body.
He do. What's up with Paul? Paul can't do it, but he can. No. You just can't get caught. That's the thing. Because, the NBA, they protect their players. That's what I already said. We had this conversation. The NBA protect their players. They're not going to give you the name of what it was. No, for sure. How many games did Bobby Porter get suspended for? Say it. 20 what?
25.
25. For what?
Wait,
Bobby Porter?
Bobby Porter, remember last year he got him 25 games.
Oh, I forgot.
What was that?
It's a hard point to argue against. These guys have access to world-class medical teams and compliance officers, literally a text away. When you're cashing $50 million checks annually, vetting your meds isn't a suggestion, it's a requirement. That is professionalism 101. This isn't just a policy violation, it's a lapse in judgment. You take one shortcut, make one uneducated guess, and suddenly the consequences are catastrophic. Regardless of the outcome, this asterisk is going to follow PG for the rest of his career. But there's a piece of this puzzle that everyone seems to be ignoring. With that level of wealth, you can afford to pick up the phone. You double-check with the league, ask the team doc, harass the compliance guy. You do not leave it to chance. Yet here we are, stuck in the land of pure speculation. Nobody outside that room knows officially what triggered George's positive test. The NBA is tight-lipped and likely won't crack. Meanwhile, the rumor mill is churning out theories ranging from synthetic cannabinoids and steroids to SARMs, peptides, or restricted stimulants. Let's be crystal clear, though. That is all noise. We are operating in the dark because the association keeps those medical files under lock and key. Frankly, that silence might be the only thing saving him from total embarrassment. Over on Gil's arena, Gil brought up a fascinating point. Players have been dancing on the line with gray area substances for decades. The policy is rigid, but the boundaries can get blurry if you aren't vigilant. It doesn't give them a pass, but it sheds some light on why seasoned vets keep walking into this trap. Here is where the narrative takes a sharp left turn. While the mainstream is fixated on the violation, there's a much grittier rumor circulating through the basketball underground. Allegedly, this wasn't cut and dry. A report from Scrooge TV claims the league slid a deal across the table to PG behind the scenes. The word is, the powers that be offered to slash or wipe out his suspension if he gave up the names of other guys using banned substances. And if you believe the report, George told them to kick rocks. He reportedly ate the 25-game ban rather than turn informant. That rumor set the comment sections on fire, with fans giving him major props for standing tall and keeping his mouth shut. But let's pump the brakes. The NBA's public rulebook doesn't exactly list snitching bonuses. Plus, not a single heavyweight outlet, no Woj, no Shams, no AP has corroborated this story. So, treat it as gossip for now. But the fact that the streets are buying it so easily speaks volumes about the cynical view people have of the league office. Everyone knows the locker room code. Players protect players. Turning rat is the quickest way to become a pariah in pro sports. It's the cardinal sin you just don't commit. Back on Gil's arena, they broke down how that secrecy actually benefits the athletes. If the specific drug stays a mystery, the player gets to write their own press release. That's how we end up with these carefully crafted, nebulous apologies that satisfy the front office while leaving the fans in the dark. But to get the full scope, you have to zoom out. The league's drug policy wasn't born in a vacuum. It launched in 1983, back when narcotics were legitimately threatening to destroy the sport's credibility. The 70s and 80s were the cocaine era, plain and simple. Estimates say a huge chunk of the roster was dabbling back then. The brand was toxic, so when David Stern stepped in, scrubbing the league clean became job number one. Arenas were empty, and sponsors were fleeing. That anti-drug initiative wasn't just about health. It was a desperate move to keep the business from crumbling under its own bad press. Fast forward to today, and the machine runs on Article 33 of the 2023 CBA. The math is simple. Mess up once, you sit for 25. Do it again, and you're gone for 55. Strike 3 means removal from the league, with a chance to apply for reinstatement after 2 years. Paul George is currently sitting on strike 1. If he slips up again, He's sitting out more than half the season. A third violation would basically force him into retirement. The program sorts banned substances into specific buckets. The drugs of abuse category includes heavy hitters like cocaine, LSD, opioids, and methamphetamine. Then you have the performance enhancers, steroids, human growth hormone, and peptides. Strangely, synthetic cannabinoids remain on the banned list. Even though the league stopped testing for natural marijuana years ago, the testing is completely random and runs year-round. Even during the off-season, they can demand blood or urine at any moment. Refusing to take a test carries the exact same punishment as failing one. Since 1986, we have seen roughly 42 suspensions under this policy, and only about 13 were tied to performance-enhancing drugs. That number seems impossibly low for 4 decades of NBA basketball. Either the testing protocols are weak, or the players are incredibly good at beating the system. That is why this whole situation feels so off. George didn't just lose games and a paycheck, he lost his credibility. Once the benefit of the doubt is gone, every excuse gets dissected and every silence feels heavy.
So ESPN's Bobby Marks reports that the Sixers will save more than $5 million in luxury tax payments as a part of George's suspension, leaving the team a little over $1 million over the threshold and making it easier for the 76ers to dip out of the tax this week without harming the roster.
When the league has dropped the hammer in the past, it got ugly fast. Take Michael Ray Richardson. He was banned for life in 1986 after testing positive for cocaine 3 times. The guy was a 4-time All-Star, putting up nearly 15 points a night, and his career just evaporated. He was the first player ever reinstated, but he never played another minute in the NBA. John Drew from the Hawks is another cautionary tale from that era. Same story, too many cocaine violations led to a lifetime banishment. Early on, Drew was averaging over 20 points a game and looked like a franchise cornerstone. That potential vanished overnight. The 80s drug crisis really thinned the herd. Roy Tarpley's story is one of the toughest to stomach. A gifted 7-footer for the Mavericks, Tarpley had all the tools to be a superstar. Instead, he couldn't stay clean and caught a lifetime ban in 1991. He got a second chance, blew it, and was banned again in 1995. He tried suing the league, claiming discrimination under the Americans with Disabilities Act, but the courts shut him down. It doesn't always end in tragedy, though. Chris Birdman Anderson got hit with a 2-year ban in 2006 for meth. Everyone assumed his career was toast. Instead, he cleaned up, clawed his way back, and won a ring with the Miami Heat in 2013. That is the rare redemption arc. Lately, the pattern looks a lot more repetitive. Tristan Thompson sat 25 games in 2024 for a butamorn and ligandrol. DeAndre Ayton got the same sentence in 2019 for a diuretic used to mask other drugs. John Collins got slapped with 25 games that same year for a growth hormone peptide. And just last year, Bobby Portis of the Bucks was suspended for tramadol. The crew on Gil's Arena drew a straight line between Paul George and the Portis case. Both camps spun the narrative as accidental use. That is usually where fans start rolling their eyes. A player gets popped, releases a carefully crafted PR statement calling it a mistake, and the league shuffles along until the next guy gets caught. Let's pivot to the Sixers, because the ripple effects here are tangible. Ironically, the front office gets some immediate financial breathing room. According to Bobby Marks, the Sixers save more than $5 million in tax payments while George sits. They get a credit of nearly $5.88 million, which is half of his suspended salary. That drops them from deep in the tax to just $1.26 million over the line. That is huge. It gives them flexibility at the trade deadline without triggering those nasty apron restrictions. Basically, this suspension might unlock roster moves that were impossible last week. Analysts think Philly might go shopping for role players from rebuilding teams to shore up their depth. Coach Nick Nurse is going to have to lean hard on guys like Kelly Oubre Jr. and Caleb Martin to patch the massive hole in the lineup. This all lands in a league that is actually trying to prioritize mental health now. The NBA launched its Mind Health program around 2018, and now every team must have a licensed mental health pro on staff. Players have access to apps like Headspace, and the Players Union runs its own wellness initiatives. It is a different world than the 80s. DeMar DeRozan and Kevin Love really shifted the culture by speaking up. DeRozan opened up about his anxiety and depression back in 2018. Love wrote a raw essay about his panic attack and started a foundation. Paul George has praised those guys and done his own advocacy work in the past. But that leads to the uncomfortable question nobody wants to ask out loud. Is George really struggling, or is mental health just a convenient shield after getting caught? We may never know the truth. The facts are simple. He is out 25 games. He is out nearly $12 million. and his team is left scrambling. George is not new to public drama. Back in 2013, he had a messy paternity battle with Daniela Rajic that played out in the tabloids. They worked it out, got married in 2022, and have 3 kids now. But remember the heat he took in 2014 for those bad takes on the Ray Rice situation? He deleted the tweets and apologized, but that stuff sticks to your reputation. This suspension, though, might be the biggest black mark on his career. He is 35, on a massive contract, and his team is in win-now mode. The timing is catastrophic. He says he is getting his mind right, but the real verdict comes when he steps back on the court. For now, Philadelphia has to navigate the wreckage while the rest of the league watches closely.